Good evening, everyone. This is Community Board 12 Economic Development meeting, May 3rd, 7 p.m. And I want to have a special guest tonight, Miss Jessie Lee from Renaissance Economic Development Corporation, which is also a CDFI. We've talked about CDFIs before, so they are engine to be able to make loans and to give businesses access to capital. Jesse is here. Jesse and I were in a course called Coro, which is was given by the Small Business Services, which oversees a lot of the bids in the city. And as a result of that, we got to know each other pretty well, and we were in a 6 month program together. So we met a couple of times, about 4 times a month for those six months. So we got to know the folks in it, and there were about 20 folks of us part of it. So Jessie is a superstar. She's now the managing director of her organization, and she's here really to talk about providing us how to fill out the PPP. If you haven't done that, this round is especially for small businesses. So that's what she's going to highlight and look towards. Do you need to be co-host? Do I need to make you co-host, Jessie?
Yeah, I'm gonna share my presentation.
Okay, great.
Awesome. And then I want to also introduce my assistant credit manager, Jonathan Rosado. He looks like a DJ.
Yes.
Jonathan is the one who actually reviews all these applications to make sure that we can get it approved and get it funded to the small businesses. And often, sometimes if there's any discrepancies, Jonathan provides the technical assistance to the business owner in telling them, okay, well, you're almost there. Just fix this or fix that, and then we can get you approved. So Jonathan's here to present also with me the technical part of the applications. Glenn, should I start? Okay, well, thank you everyone for inviting us, Renaissance Economic Development. I look forward to one day hopefully meeting all of you in person at King's Manor and meeting, just hanging out and probably eating some good food in Jamaica. So today I'm actually gonna present to everyone a little bit about Renaissance, just to introduce you to who we are and what we're doing right now for small businesses. So I'm going to share my screen really quick. Are you able, Jonathan, nod your head. Do you see my screen? Okay, sounds good. So just a little bit about Renaissance. We're actually located in Lower Manhattan. So we're in between Chinatown and Lower East Side. We've been around since 1997, really as a CDFI and SBA lender. I would say in the last 25 years or so, we've deployed probably $55 million into the New York City community, specifically to our low-income entrepreneurs. And I would say 90% of the entrepreneurs who come to us are minority. We were founded by our parent organization called Asian Americans for Equality. Asian Americans for Equality was born out of the civil rights movement. Originally, we were advocating for Asian Americans to have certain rights, equality. But now it's really, we cover all minority, immigrant, low-income communities all throughout New York City. So we serve, used to be, we were really small. We were probably only in Chinatown. now we serve the entire New York City 5 boroughs. So it doesn't matter where you come from. If you are coming from a low-income community and you're a minority and you're an immigrant, and you just can't access any financial resources, that's what we're here for as a nonprofit. So, I think from here, we want to focus on the SBA PPP loan program. And I'm going to let Jonathan, who knows the technical parts of it, talk to you more about the whole process.
Sure. Hey, guys. So in terms of the process, the very first thing that we have to do is actually determine basic PPP loan eligibility. And so we may ask various questions like, were you open prior to the pandemic, which in this case, the cutoff point would be February 15th, 2020. So as long as you were in operation before that time, and you meet some other basic criteria, like if you are a resident or a citizen of the US, and you have not defrauded or have defaulted on any federally backed or guaranteed loans, you would pass the basic eligibility for you to then qualify for PPP. And then at that point, we would determine what the business type and industry of your business is when we go and fill out the application with you. And then we go about collecting documents, and we'll go into that in further detail. But once we've collected all of the documents, we've determined the kind of industry that your business is, or if you're an independent contractor or a sole proprietor, we'll then ask you to go ahead and complete the PPP application. Sign it, and then we would go ahead and submit that over to the Small Business Administration. And Jessie, if you can go over to the next slide. Perfect.
And just to let you know, Renaissance is directly lending to the borrower. We're not just packaging. We are actually deploying the money we're the one dispersing the money into the business owner.
Yes. So in terms of the documents that are required, there's basically two types of businesses that we're looking at: S Corp, C Corp, and limited liability companies. That's in one batch or in one pocket of businesses, and then the next pocket would be general contractors and sole proprietors. And they would require two different sets of payroll documents. We'll just take a quick look at the C Corp and the S Corp and LLCs. So for these particular kinds of businesses that are registered as a C Corp, S Corp, or LLC, we would need the 2019 or 2020 payroll tax forms, which would include the IRS 941 forms, the 940, or the New York State 45, which is the state quarterly wage reporting. And just for future purposes, if you guys do intend to do this, or if you know people that are intending to apply for PPP, those documents, those quarterly returns do need to be signed. They would also need to provide a copy of their payroll journal. And I'll go into further detail with what we're actually looking for in terms of the IRS forms and the payroll journal. And then the rest of it is very, very simple stuff. So photo identification, a valid New York State driver's license, or a passport. And if clients are immigrants, but they're permanent residents of the United States, they can also provide a copy of their green card, the front and the back portion of the green card. We would also need to collect the signed borrower application form, as well as the first second draw of PPP. We would also need to collect a separate form that would be the SBA form 2483 SD, which means second draw, but it's essentially the exact same thing.
Yeah, so what do we mean by first draw and second draw is, PPP, SBA separates out if you're a first-time PPP borrower and if you're a second-time PPP borrower. It's two separate types of applications. So if it's your first time, you'll do SBA Form 2483. If it's your second time borrowing PPP. It's the 2483 SD.
Yeah. And lastly, in terms of additional supporting documents, we would need the filing receipt, which would be the Articles of Incorporation or the IRS filing receipt, and the business NAICS code. Now, oftentimes it'll be the NAICS code would be included in the tax returns, but sometimes CPAs don't actually put it into the tax return. So we would then have to ask the borrower for the proper NAICS code, or we would have to determine with the borrower what that NAICS code is and how it corresponds to their particular industry. And Jessie, if you can go to the next slide. So for this, for independent contractors, the main difference here is going to be the payroll documents. So for the payroll documents, what we're really going to be looking at is the 2019 or 2020 personal tax returns that show a Schedule C. This identifies, one, the type of the business, right? And it also identifies the gross wages for that particular year. You could also provide the 2019 or the 2020 IRS W-2 or 1099 forms. And in addition to this, we also need to see 3 months of business or personal bank statements, whichever corresponds to the business, and it has to be for Q1 of 2020. Now, those consecutive months would be January, February, and March. And the reason why we are looking for those is because we need to make sure that you were operating before February 15th, 2020, and also after. All right. And then all of the other documents are the same. So we're going to go through some examples of what we're actually looking for in terms of the individual documents. So Jessie, if you can go on to the next slide. So if you can see over here, we're looking at the 941 quarterly returns. And this one in particular is for 2020. Now, what we're looking for is the corresponding quarter. So on the upper right-hand side, what's circled in blue, you'll see that there's an X over here where it says January, February, and March. That's Q1 of that particular fiscal year. And what we're looking at is the wages for that particular quarter. Now, what the SBA is requiring us to do is to formulate 12 months worth of sales, 12 months worth of total payroll. And then we are to divide that by 12 and then multiply that by 2.5 or 3.5, depending on whether or not you are realistically 3.5 if you are a business that has a NAICS code that begins with a 7.2. Most of those businesses are restaurants, limited service or full service restaurants. And if you go on to the next slide, we're looking at the 940. And
so
hold
on a second, Jonathan.
Yep.
So let me clarify. You take the 2.7, say this is your quarterly, right? You're taking 2.7184 divided by 12 months, right? Am I correct?
Oh, no, because it's quarterly. What we would do is we would be collecting every single quarter. And I'll get to that with the 940, but this is just an example of what we're looking for in each 941. So the client would be responsible for providing the 941s for 2019, corresponding to Q1, which is quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and quarter 4.
Gotcha.
What the 940 does is that it actually tallies the entire year, which is great. So in the next slide, you'll see that the 940 gives you the total annual wages that were dispersed to employees. And we can take that number, that 48,800, divide that by 12, and then multiply that by 2.5 or 3.5. Now, it's really important to note here that the 3.5 multiplier only applies to businesses that have a NAICS code of a 7.2, beginning with a 7.2, and is a second draw. That's the only way that it applies. It does not apply for first draw PPP applicants. Okay.
So the 3.5 is really for
Limited service. Yeah.
It's food related businesses.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And for the second draw, that's also really, really important.
Yes. So it's only for second draw food related purposes, then they're looking at a higher amount for you.
Yep.
Okay, so just to let you know, they're using your payroll to determine how much money you're gonna get.
Mm-hmm. And now if we go over to the next slide. So if you're a sole proprietor or or in this case, an independent contractor, what we would do is we would take a look at your Schedule C that's reported in your personal tax returns. And what it's going to identify is the name of the proprietor, the business profession, the business name, the social security number corresponding to that independent contractor. And also, but really the most important thing here is the gross wages, right? So what we're going to do is then take the gross wages for the year. If you're an independent contractor, divide that by 12 and then multiply that by 2.5.
For independent contractor, we're looking at gross sales though, am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so on your Schedule C, you're using the gross sales to determine how much to give you.
Mm-hmm. And we would
So-
take that number, divide it by 12, and then multiply it by 2.5. And that's what you would be qualified for.
So it's the 62,350 divide by 12 times the 2.5.
Yeah.
To determine how much PPP dollars you're going to get.
Mm-hmm. And then we're going to take a look at some other documents that you can provide. So let's say that for whatever reason, let's say that you began operations in December of 2019, and then the pandemic hit February 2020. You didn't, for whatever reason, you just didn't file taxes, and you can't provide a W-2 or a 941 quarterly tax returns. Well, we do accept payroll records, but the payroll records do need to be certified by a CPA. And they also need to be, they also need to correspond to the window. They need to correspond to the 2020 window. So if you see over here, where it says from June 19th, 2020 to November 2nd, 2020, that would be the window in which this payroll summary was created. So we would take a look at that. But again, you just have to make sure that this is certified by a CPA. And then following this, we also need to collect photo identification. Again, a valid driver's license will suffice as long as it is not expired. So it's really, really important that none of these forms of identification are expired. It doesn't matter if it's a passport, a green card, or a driver's license. They must not be expired.
And I can tell you an experience we did have is we had a borrower whose driver's license, unfortunately, during the pandemic, everyone knew there was issues with going to DMV, but it happened to be that the client's driver's license expired in March 2020, and they had went to DMV to get it reissued, but couldn't get it. The DMV wasn't responding back. That delayed PPP significantly for us. So we had to ask the client, look for your passport. And so they were like, oh, my passport, I keep it in a safe in the bank. So we're like, well, you got to go out there and get it. So yeah, unfortunately, identification is really important here. Yeah.
And then if we move on to the next document here, it's the certificate of authority, which is actually going to show the validation date of the business, as well as the name of the business and also the EIN number. You would need those three data points in order for us to determine what the date in which the IRS filed this business and validated this business as a legit business. That would be the start date. We would have to put that in the application as well. So this one is also really important. Following this, we have the bank statements. So for this particular client, or for this particular business, they provided February 2020 bank statements. This is just an example because we're taking a look at the actual month and that window in which the bank statements were valid. again, we would have to collect January, February, and March to determine that the business was active before, during, and after the February 15th cutoff point. And then the last thing over here is a breakdown of loan forgiveness. So with these funds, with PPP loan funds, what you have to keep in mind is that 60% of the funds have to be used to payroll in order for the full loan to be forgiven. So what this means is that as long as you can show that 60% of the funds were used toward payroll, your full loan would be forgiven. There are some limitations in terms of what you can do with the other 40% of the funds, but it's not that limited. You can use it for rent if you owed back rent, or if you want to use it for current rent, you can. If you need to use it to pay utility bills, you also can do that. If you need to use these funds to purchase inventory, you can also do that, or other supplies. And if you own the building in which your business operates in, you can also use these funds to pay off mortgage interest if you're inclined to do so. Yep. So Jessie, I'll let you take it from here.
So yeah, I think one thing I want to go back to is just making sure everyone's aware that this is PPP basically means, a paycheck protection program, right? So it's really designed to help small businesses keep their workers on payroll. That's why they are giving you a loan, a forgivable loan, based on your payroll records, or for Schedule C folks, independent contractors, is based on what you generate on your on the income level. So, the amount of PPP loan you get is based on those items. And then it's only forgivable, or 100% is forgivable, when you can demonstrate that majority of the funds, which is 60% that you got, was used on keeping people on payroll. Mm-hmm. Right? So I think everyone should still apply for this program. It's still a very good program. It's not that hard to get if you think about the paperwork and the application, but it's just a matter of, in order for you to get this loan forgiven, you really need to make sure you spent the money on payroll. And it's not our responsibility to keep the records of how you spent the money. Mm-hmm. The onus is on the borrower to keep records, because SBA does pull these files, these loans, for audit purposes. So if you did not spend 60% of the money towards payroll, you're not going to get 100% of the loan forgiven. Only a portion of the loan is forgiven, and then the remaining part that's not forgiven becomes a loan that you have to pay back.
Yeah.
So just be aware. Yeah. I'm going to stop here for a second because I want to open up for questions before we move on to another loan product of ours. Mm-hmm.
So if you've got any questions, you can raise your electronic hand. And while you're doing that, what are the differences between the first draw and the second draw?
So for the first draw, the calculation, the difference is that they're only allowing you to multiply by 2.5 times. So it doesn't matter if you're a food-based business or not, you're only allowed to multiply the number by 2.5 times. Mm-hmm. So the way the SBA does it is they're looking at your payroll record and they're saying, I'm going to give you money for 2.5 months. That's how they created 2.5 times. On the second draw, so, that's, if you've never gotten PPP loan, you are considered first draw. Okay. If you got a PPP loan the first time already, and now you want another PPP loan, that second loan is called the second draw. And the calculation is that If you're a food-based business, they're allowed to multiply by 3.5 times.
Mhm.
So only for food-based businesses, they're saying, I'm allowing you, I'm going to cover you 3.5 months of payroll instead of 2.5 months. But all other industries in the second draw is 2.5 months.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I have another question, but I'll let Fitzroy go. Go ahead, Fitzroy.
Oh, thank you, Glenn.
You're
Good evening,
welcome.
everyone. So I have two questions. The first question is for the portion of the loan that cannot be forgiven or would not be forgiven. What is the interest rate range that someone would have to pay?
Sure. Yeah, I can answer that. So for that first question, the interest rate on all of these loans is 1%, right? In terms of the repayment ability of the loan, it's going to be over the course of 5 years. But just keep in mind that the SBA is actually giving all borrowers 16 months worth of principal and interest. I'm sorry, principal deferment. And the reason why I want to mention that it's principal deferment and not just interest is because the interest, while the loan payments are being deferred, the interest is still accruing on the transaction. All right. But it is 16 months worth of principal deferment for every single borrower. After 16 months, that's when you would be making a payment at 1% interest. And that would only be for the unforgiven amount. Now, in terms of the what portion of that would be the unforgiven amount, if you don't hit that 60% threshold for payroll, right? The only portion of the loan that is going to be forgivable will be payroll. So let's say, for example, that you have a $10,000 loan for PPP, and 50% of those funds were used toward payroll. And you can only prove that 50% of those funds were used toward payroll, even though you used all of the other funds in accordance with PPP guidelines. So you used the rest of the funds for rent, utility bills, mortgage interest payments, supplies, inventory. Even though you would have used those funds accordingly according to PPP guidelines, because you didn't hit that 60% threshold, only 50% in this scenario would be forgiven. So the other 50%, that 5,000, would have to be repaid back to the SBA again over the course of 5 years at 1% interest. So you can see even if you didn't hit that full loan forgiveness, it's still relatively manageable. And the reason why I bring this up is because in round one, when we were first doing this, the SBA was requiring all of our borrowers to repay back these loans in 2 years. And essentially, they gave them 12 months of deferment. So they would have to pay it all back when payments started over the course of a year, which was not really manageable for a lot of businesses. So they've definitely expanded that to make the installments way more manageable for small business owners.
Nice. And then my second question is actually comes from Glenn's question.
Mhm.
Is there like a limit on the number of times the business is able to draw upon these loans?
Yeah, there's only for these businesses, it's only 2 times. Yeah. So you have your first draw, and then the SBA, their guideline is really that as long as you can prove that you've used those funds, right, and you have a record that you've used those funds, then you can go ahead and apply for the next PPP loan, right? So what does this mean? If you go and you get a $10,000 loan for PPP and you've exhausted those funds over the course of, let's say, over a month, you've used all of those funds to cover back payroll and current payroll, you can then apply for the next PPP loan. But it's only 2 times, no more than that.
Oh, nice. No, thank you. It sounds like a really good deal.
Yeah. But you would have to show it. Yeah. And just keep in mind, you have to show that you've exhausted those funds because, again, keep in mind, you can get audited, and it's not this is not a hypothetical scenario here. We've had clients that have been audited, and we've had to collect everything. So it's vitally important that you make sure that you have all of your documents in order and that you're keeping a record of all of these transactions for at a minimum 4 years. Because if you think the SBA won't audit you, trust me, they will.
Yes.
No,
Um,
I
So
can
we,
completely understand that.
Mhm.
yeah. Oh, but and then by the way, PPP ends May 31st. Am I correct, Jonathan?
Yes, May 31st.
Yes. So don't wait till the very last minute to apply for PPP.
Now, I understand that Governor Cuomo was encouraging churches to participate
Mhm.
in this second draw. Is there anything in particular that the churches have to look out for or to have available? Is there anything extra? Or
That is a really good question. We haven't come across many churches, at least in our nonprofit, that have applied for PPP through us. But
Yes.
my assumption is that the documentation requirements are still the same. So I believe most, I believe most churches organize themselves as LLCs. Am I correct in that in that assessment?
some of them are not-for-profit
504.
corporations. Yeah,
Yeah. So
Okay.
here's the
501c3.
501.
Yeah, so for nonprofits, unfortunately, Renaissance doesn't have the capacity
Mhm.
to lend to another nonprofit. Very often when another nonprofit, like a church institution, comes to Renaissance, we do encourage you to go to your local bank to apply for PPP. But the process that we showed you is the same. The
Exactly the same.
paperwork is the same. The only difference is because churches, a lot of them are structured as a 501c3, you don't have owners, you have board members.
Right.
So in the section where it talks about ownership, who owns the business, in that case, you leave that blank. Okay, so for our business, our private small businesses, they have an owner, right? They
Right.
can 50%, 100%. For nonprofits, you don't have an owner, you have a board. You just have to leave that section blank. But at the top of the application, there is a checkbox for you. And that checkbox is religious institution or nonprofit.
Yeah, okay.
So if you check that box, SBA is aware that there's no ownership for these type of entities, legal entities, and that you're governed by a board.
Okay.
But Renaissance doesn't have the capacity to borrow to nonprofits or find religious institutions. So we encourage you to go to your local bank.
And basically follow the same process as you were saying. So the
Absolutely.
Exactly.
same layout that you've had here. Okay.
Carver Federal, there you go. Fitzroy said Carver Federal. But the
Okay,
process
great.
is the same. Process is the same.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Reverend Thorbs?
Yes. What website would you go to? I just went on, I was just Googling, and there's a bunch of people saying SBA grants, and because you're leery of giving your information out, you want to make sure you're going to the right site. Which is the correct site to go to?
So you're talking about PPP lending,
Yes.
right? So SBA doesn't do the direct application, right? The SBA website only gives out information for PPP loans. You have to go to a credited lender who does PPP lending. And on the SBA website, there is a search page. Let me show you. Give me a second here. I'm just going to open up that search page. Give me a second here. SBA PPP lenders. Okay. Okay, give me a second. Let me, I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Okay, so this is the SBA website, right? And here, get help with your PPP loan. Let's see. You can search. Where is it? Hold on a second. Lender information. Where's the? There used to be a search button where you can find the local lender in your area that's doing PPP loans. Maybe it's okay. Can't find it right now, but hold on a second. Can't find it. Sorry.
Okay.
But in any case, I would say you want to go to a accredited bank. All banks should be taking PPP loans. But for us, if you want to contact us for PPP lending, we are accredited SBA lender. This is the contact information you should use. So all you gotta do is email us at info@renaissance-ny.org. In the email, just say you're referred by Suffern Boulevard Bid, and then our counselor will contact you to start the PPP application. So for PPP loans, the SBA website doesn't do the lending. You have to go to a lender that is approved by SBA. We are approved by SBA to do PPP lending. But for grants, you go to the SBA website, which is simply sba.gov, sba.gov for grant programs. But for the loan programs, you have to go to a lender that is approved by SBA.
By the way, Jessie, I actually found the portal for you to find the actual PPP certified lenders.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Can you share that?
Let's see.
Yeah, you got
can you go
co-host.
and
You got co-host, Jonathan.
yeah, Jessie, if you can just go to
Okay.
give me a second. Let me see here. If you can just go to sba.gov,
Yeah.
right?
You don't
And then
put
when
it in
you're
the
going-
chat box.
Oh yeah, that's perfect.
If you put it in the chat box, I'll show you guys all where it is. 1 second.
I have a 2 computer setup. That's the reason why it's like.
Jonathan's too fancy for me.
Let's see here. SBA.gov. Great. And then funding programs.
Uh-huh.
And then once you go into funding programs, you go to COVID relief options. And then under COVID relief options, you have a paycheck protection program. You can click learn more.
Right.
And then under there, you
sure.
have find a lender. And then
Yeah.
you get matched with a lender. Yep.
Okay, let me share my screen with everyone. I'll show you where it is. And I'll also put it in the chat box for all of you. Copy. So here on the SBA website, under funding programs, PPP, you can search for your lenders in the area. And then you just put in your zip code. We're in 1102. Search.
And then boom.
And then that shows you all the credited people who are doing PPP loans. Right, so this is all your lenders.
Would you do it for zip code 11435?
Okay, a second. 11435.
435. There you go.
Yeah. So it's
Perfect.
interesting. Yeah. It's interesting. They only list the banks, I noticed.
Yeah.
They didn't list any of the C. Oh, wait a minute. There's more here. Well, there's like 60,000 of us. There's a lot of lenders who does PPP lending. But like you can search by lender's name as well. Renaissance.
Gulfport. Oh my goodness.
Oh, this is a LA. This is the wrong one. Oops, sorry about that.
But anyway, so you've got a lending. You can find lenders on the site and an SBA site. Okay.
Yeah.
and
Great.
then for for Renaissance, because we are an SBA lender, we're automatically allowed to do PPP lending.
Okay.
We don't need we don't need to have a special approval because we've been doing SBA lending.
Okay.
Um,
I want to find out if there are any other questions.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Reddick.
And going back, the forgiveness, what is the forgiveness loan?
Mm-hmm.
I understand you can use that for payroll.
Correct?
Did I hear correct?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes. But just keep in mind that for you to receive full loan forgiveness, at a minimum, 60% of the funds have to have been used toward payroll. So there's a
Payroll.
threshold that you have to hit,
Okay.
60% with payroll, and then you should be able to receive full loan forgiveness. But if you don't hit that 60% threshold, the rest of that loan that is not that wasn't used toward payroll then becomes a loan that's payable back to the SBA.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to share my screen again. Again, if there are anyone who is interested in starting a PPP application, they can email us. Make sure you write referred by Suffolk Boulevard bid, and we'll note you that this was based on the meeting today. So we put some priority to these. And also note that again, the PPP application ends May 31st. But tell people don't wait till May 31st to apply because it takes time for us to process the loan. So, generally you want to apply at least, well in advance, at least 2-3 weeks in advance to start the process. So it does
So
take
they should
time.
be starting now. If they're thinking about it, they should be in the process this week, no
Yes.
later than this week.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, I just want to specify one last thing here. I know that we're getting down to crunch time, but just be aware that if you are putting out multiple PPP applications, and let's say that you come to us, there might be a hiccup with the SBA if they see that there are 2 applications and another lender has submitted another application on your behalf. Then it can be held up. So just you want to try to do it with one lender at a time. Don't try to do it with like multiple lenders all at the exact same time, or else it's going to cause a lot of headache.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've had borrowers who went to Chase, applied for a PPP loan, first draw, and then they came to us and applied for the same thing. And they think, oh, if I apply to both places, I'll get more money. No, the SBA doesn't allow that. And on
Right.
top of that, they'll hold up the application.
Yep.
Okay.
Glenn, may I ask another question, please?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
I'm curious, just where and how do you do outreach?
For us, we outreach through radio, newspaper, our referral partners, like Glenn. He's a partner to us at the Suffern Boulevard bid. Other bids refer their merchants to us. For Renaissance, a lot of people have actually been coming to us through the SBA website, or
Okay.
SBA would refer the clients to us. And also, because we're existing SBA lender, we have a lot of existing businesses that have been coming to us. So for example, maybe 5 years ago, we had helped a business in, say Jackson Heights. During COVID, they came back to us for assistance again. So a lot of it's word of mouth because we've been around for about 25 years.
Oh. Okay.
Yep. So you probably hear us through SBA or maybe the Small Business Development Centers. I know there's the SBDC on York College. They refer a lot of clients to us as well.
And I would imagine the Small Business Support Center also
Right.
are another location that would, reference you
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah, exactly. So a little bit more and then so the next phase we wanted to talk to you about was this other program that we have. This is not, so this is a different program, not PPP. PPP is based on payroll. For Renaissance, we recently launched an economic recovery loan program. It's available from April 1st till September 30th. This one, it's much more flexible. Small businesses can borrow up to $50,000 at 3% fixed. This is not a forgivable loan. This is a loan that you do have to repay back. The loan terms are up to 7 years, and the initial 3 months, you get SBA debt relief. So that means the first 3 months of loan payment, the SBA is paying on your behalf, so that you as the business owner won't need to start paying until the 4th month. This program is a little bit different because it's not based on your payroll. You can use the funds in all different manners, which is much more flexible. You can even use the funds to start up a business. So I know a lot of people have been thinking about taking on a location now that some of the commercial spaces have either become empty and the rent has come down. Entrepreneurs are seeing opportunity there to start their business. So this recovery loan program is much more flexible in terms of how you use the funds. It's not just based on payroll. And you can get up to $50,000. You just have to be able to show that you're able to repay the $50,000. So this is not forgivable. This is a loan, but it's much more flexible. It's 3% fixed, which is pretty good. I think it's pretty inexpensive money right now, up to 7 years. So if you think about it, at $50,000, 3%, 7 years, your monthly payment is around $600, which is somewhat affordable for many small businesses, depending on how they want to use the money, right? So, here the documentation is a little bit more than PPP loans, right? The documentation, we do need to do full underwriting. And so we do need to look at business and personal tax returns. If you don't have your 2020 tax return, just provide us something internally prepared. 3 months of business bank statements. We do need to look at the owner's credit report because we're looking at risk, because this is a loan that needs to be repaid. We need to make sure that the owners are credit is somewhat good. And for Renaissance, this is our direct program. Our minimum credit score is 600. So that's the minimum. So I would say if people are concerned about their credit, take a look at it first before you apply. But I think our threshold for credit scoring is pretty low. We're pretty flexible on that. The initial application fee is just really for a credit report. We just need to run your credit. And again, certificate of doing business that you're a legally operating business in New York. We need the owner's photo ID, commercial lease. And usually this process takes about a month to process. If you're interested, you can go on the Renaissance website and fill out an interest form. And let me show you, if I click on here. One second. Oops. Let me just go to the website. I'll go to our website here. Give me a second, please. Okay. Okay. So, if you go to our website, the Economic Recovery Loan Program is in here. If you click on it, the English version, it's the loan flyer. It tells you all the terms of the loan, and then you can just fill out an interest form. Right. Once you fill out some basic information, our counselor will contact you based on language need. So if your small business owner speaks Spanish, we will have a Spanish business counselor reach out to them. If they speak Korean, then of course a Korean counselor, and then if it's Chinese, a Chinese business counselor. So we do have language capacity, especially for immigrant entrepreneurs where English is a second language. We try to be culturally sensitive as much as possible to help our small businesses. So again, that's our own recovery loan program. And we, for us, we are directly lending from Renaissance. We are directly lending to the small businesses. And it's pretty favorable terms. And it's more flexible. The reason why we created this is because a lot of our business owners say, well, PPP is not enough money for me. It's not going to cover everything for me. So we said, well, here's an additional loan that you can use to cover any expenses you have right now. And some of them took on some high interest debt during the pandemic because they were very desperate for cash. And so we said, well, how about this? We can help you refinance some of that high interest debt with this recovery loan program. So we've seen some of our business owners take on these online loans at 20, 30%. And because they were desperate during the pandemic, and now we're refinancing that debt for them. Mm-hmm. So imagine they're going from 20% to 3% fixed now over 7 years. So that makes a huge difference on their cash flow. So we hope that we can assist the small business owners in both PPP and an economic recovery loan so that they have all the capital needs met and they can survive and overcome whatever they're going through right now.
Can you guys handle we've got a large Bangladesh community on Hillside in the businesses.
Now let me understand, do they speak Hindi?
I
What-
don't
which-
believe so.
What language do they speak?
Bangladesh. Well, in Bangladesh, there's a good portion of Bangladeshi people that do speak Hindi, and if they do, we do have a business counselor that does speak Hindi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other questions from Jessie and Jonathan? Well, I'd like to thank you very much for coming on and walking us through what the steps that are required for PPP, and I actually do like your recovery loan program. That looks like another asset to support access to capital for businesses. Oh, yeah, we have a hand up.
Alam has a hand up. Yep.
Go ahead, Alam.
Hi, sorry, I was late. I'm from Bangladesh community. I live in also Hillside. So I did not get the entire message. Later on, I'm gonna pick up, and if any way I can help Bangladeshi community, whoever having business in Hillside. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you, Alam.
Yeah.
Super. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just really thank you. Thank you for walking us through. We're gonna put this out so that anybody else who's interested in taking advantage of the PPP before the end of the month, that they can take a look at it. And of course, the other loan is also available to small businesses as well. So again, thank you for coming on. Good to see you again, Jess. It's been a while, and Jonathan, it was nice meeting you. And,
Nice meeting you too.
Thanks for the work that you're doing to support small businesses, because they are what drives the engine of this economy. So thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us again. We have a very diverse team at Renaissance. So whatever the need is of the small business owner, we'll figure it out. So pass the information, the presentation along to any business owner you think needs help right now. That's what we're here for.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Have a
Thanks,
good evening, guys.
Jonathan.
No worries. Thank you, guys. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
If there are no further questions, I'm going to close out the meeting. Any other questions from anybody?
No.
Well, again, thank you all for participating and coming on, and see you next month.
Okay.
Good night. God bless.
Nice evening.
Bye, guys. Take care.
Bye.
And
All
come
right.
let us nourish you at the Nourish Spot.
All right. Yes.
Bye.
Have a
All
good
right.
night.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.
night.
Take care.
Bye.
Good night.